A recommendation can be profitable, fully disclosed, and technically legal, and still fail the client. That is where fiduciary responsibility begins. This lecture explores the moments when compensation, convenience, loyalty, and professional judgment collide, and shows how duties of care, loyalty, suitability, and conflict management protect the interests that must remain at the center, the clients. This is one of the most important topics in finance because investment management is built on trust. Clients often delegate very important decisions to professionals. They may delegate research, portfolio construction, trading, monitoring, and reporting. The professional usually has more information, more market access, and more technical knowledge than the client. That creates a principal-agent problem. The client bears the consequences of the investment decision, but the advisor, broker, portfolio manager, analyst, or firm may face incentives that don't perfectly match the client's interest. That is why ethics cannot be treated as a side topic. It is central to investment practice. A good outcome doesn't automatically mean the decision was ethical. A portfolio may perform well by luck, even if the process was careless or conflicted. And a poor outcome doesn't automatically mean the professional acted unethically. Markets are uncertain, so we evaluate both outcome and process. Did the professional act with care? Did the professional act with loyalty? Were conflicts identified? Was the client treated fairly? Was the recommendation suitable? Was the communication honest? That is the foundation for today's lecture. Before we can understand duties, we must understand the relationship. Not every finance professional has exactly the same role. A portfolio manager with discretionary authority, an investment advisor providing ongoing advice, a broker making a transaction recommendation, a research analyst writing a report, and an employee managing firm capital may face overlapping duties, but the duties aren't identical. So the first question is, who is the client? The client may be an individual, a household, a trust, a pension plan, a corporation, a fund, a foundation, or another institution. The second question is, what authority has been delegated? Is the professional only providing education? Is the professional making recommendations? Is the professional selecting managers, trading securities, or monitoring the full portfolio? The third question is, what standard applies? The relationship may involve fiduciary duty, best interest obligations, suitability obligations, contract duties, firm policies, professional standards, or several of these at the same time. A fiduciary relationship arises when one party is expected to act for the benefit of another in a matter involving trust and confidence. In investment practice, fiduciary responsibility is often connected to advisors and managers who influence client assets, investment policy, or recommendations. A fiduciary mindset changes the question. It isn't simply, can I justify this transaction? The better question is this consistent with the client's best interest, given the role I agreed to perform? Now, let's talk about the duty of loyalty. Loyalty asks a very direct question: whose interests come first? In investment practice, the professional's interest, the firm's interest, and the client's interest may not always point in the same direction. The duty of loyalty requires the professional not to use the relationship of trust to benefit the professional or the firm at the client's expense. This doesn't mean professionals cannot earn fees. It doesn't mean firms cannot be profitable. It doesn't mean affiliated products are always prohibited. But it does mean conflicts must be recognized, controlled, and disclosed when disclosure is appropriate. A loyalty problem can arise when a recommendation is influenced by compensation rather than client fit. It can arise when one client account receives better trade allocation than another. It can arise when client commissions or client information are used to benefit the advisor or firm without proper basis and controls. It can also arise when gifts, entertainment, referral arrangements, or outside business interests influence judgment. Loyalty isn't only an individual virtue, it is also a firm-level control issue. A firm that takes loyalty seriously designs compensation, product approval, trade allocation, gifts and entertainment policies, outside activity rules, referral policies, and disclosure procedures, so employees aren't rewarded for placing the firm ahead of the client. In finance, good ethics must be built into systems. The duty of care focuses on the quality of the professional's decision-making process. A professional may be loyal and still harm a client by being careless, uninformed, inattentive, or unreasonably optimistic. Care requires competence, diligence, reasonable investigation, and a sound basis for believing that advice fits the client's objectives and circumstances. There are several important parts of care. First, understand the client. This includes objectives, constraints, time horizon, liquidity needs, tax situation, risk tolerance, risk capacity, investment experience, restrictions, and other relevant circumstances. Second, understand the investment. The professional should understand the sources of return, risks, costs, liquidity, complexity, tax consequences, leverage, counterparty exposure, operational risks, and the conditions under which the investment may perform poorly. Third, evaluate the fit. A technically sound investment can still be wrong for a particular client. Fourth, consider reasonable alternatives. The question isn't only whether a recommendation can be defended. The question is whether another strategy, account type, vehicle, or implementation method would better serve the client. Fifth, monitor when required. If the relationship includes ongoing advice or discretionary management, care includes periodic review of the portfolio and client circumstances. Finally, document the rationale. A strong file should show what information was considered, what analysis was performed, what conflicts were identified, and why the recommendation was reasonable. Care is disciplined professional judgment. Putting client interests first sounds simple, but in practice, it requires careful thinking. A client-first recommendation should be driven by the client's needs, not by the professional's compensation, convenience, product inventory, sales pressure, or personal preference. But client-first doesn't always mean choosing the lowest cost product. Cost matters because fees, commissions, spreads, taxes, and expenses reduce the client's net return. However, a higher cost strategy may sometimes be justified if it provides meaningful client benefits, such as risk control, tax management, customization, liquidity access, operational support, or exposure that better matches the client's objective. The key question is client net benefit. What benefit does the client receive? What explicit costs are involved? What hidden or indirect costs exist? What risk burden does the client accept? What constraints are created for the future? A client-first professional should be able to explain what client objective the recommendation serves. The professional should understand the risk and whether the client can tolerate and afford that risk. The professional should evaluate reasonable alternatives. The recommendation should fit the client's time horizon, liquidity needs, tax situation, legal constraints, and stated preferences. And the professional should ask a powerful final question. Would this recommendation still be defensible later if reviewed by the client, a supervisor, an investment committee, or a regulator? That question brings ethics into real decision-making. Suitability is one of the central ideas in ethical investment practice. Suitability asks whether a recommended transaction or strategy is appropriate for a specific client, given what we know about that client. This is narrower than a broad fiduciary relationship, but it is still extremely important. A recommendation can be intelligent in general and unsuitable for a particular client. That is why know your client responsibilities come first. A professional cannot reasonably decide whether something fits the client without first developing a reasonable understanding of the client. Relevant client information may include investment objectives, financial situation, tax status, investment experience, time horizon, liquidity needs, risk tolerance, risk capacity, other investments, and relevant facts the client provides. For institutional clients, the same idea appears through the investment mandate, investment policy statement, governing documents, risk budget, liquidity requirements, spending policy, regulatory restrictions, and the authority of the person or committee acting for the institution. It is also important to distinguish suitability, best interest obligations, and fiduciary duty. Suitability asks whether the recommendation fits. A best interest standard raises the focus by asking whether the professional or firm is placing its own interest ahead of the client at the time of recommendation. Fiduciary duty can be broader, because it may cover the full relationship, including loyalty, care, conflicts, advice, monitoring, and agreed services. These concepts are related, but they aren't identical. Investment recommendations should be evaluated in the context of the client's full situation. Portfolio management isn't simply a search for the highest expected return. It is the process of selecting exposures that are appropriate for the client's objectives and constraints. A strong recommendation begins with a clear understanding of what is feasible for the client. The feasible set is shaped by risk tolerance, risk capacity, return objective, investment horizon, liquidity needs, taxes, legal restrictions, ethical preferences, diversification requirements, and operational constraints. Risk tolerance and risk capacity are especially important. Risk tolerance asks how much volatility or loss the client can emotionally tolerate. Risk capacity asks how much loss the client can financially withstand. These aren't always the same. A client may feel comfortable taking risk, but may not have the financial capacity to absorb a large loss. Another client may have the financial capacity to take risk, but may not emotionally tolerate volatility. Time horizon also matters. Money needed soon shouldn't usually be treated the same way as money intended for a distant future goal. Liquidity needs matter because clients may need cash access. Taxes and legal restrictions matter because the best investment before taxes or before restrictions may not be the best investment after the full context is considered. Unique preferences also matter. Values, family goals, governance needs, reporting requirements, and operational constraints may shape the portfolio. When the investment policy is vague or outdated, unsuitable advice becomes more likely. A conflict of interest exists when a professional, firm, or related party has an incentive that could compromise or appear to compromise objective judgment on behalf of the client. The existence of a conflict doesn't automatically mean misconduct has occurred, but it does mean the conflict must be identified and handled appropriately. Conflicts can come from compensation, product selection, trading practices, personal investments, client-to-client differences, and information access. For example, an affiliated product may create a conflict if the firm receives an economic benefit from recommending it. A trading conflict may arise when limited investment opportunities must be allocated among client accounts. A personal conflict may arise when an employee trades in a security related to client activity. A strong conflict process asks, what incentive or relationship could affect judgment? Is it material? Could it affect the client, the recommendation, the trade, or the fee? Should it be eliminated, avoided, mitigated, supervised, or disclosed? And how should the response be documented? Disclosure is also essential. Effective disclosure should be timely, specific, complete in substance, understandable, and connected to action. Weak disclosure hides behind vague language. Strong disclosure explains who benefits, how they benefit, how the conflict could affect the recommendation, what alternatives exist, and what controls are in place. But disclosure alone doesn't cure every conflict. Some conflicts must be avoided or eliminated. Now, let's connect ethics to several common operating areas in investment firms. First, soft dollars or client commission arrangements. These occur when client brokerage commissions are used to obtain brokerage or research services. The ethical issue is straightforward. The client pays the commission, while the advisor or manager may receive research or services that support the investment process. These arrangements can create value when they improve decision-making for client accounts, but they can also create conflicts. The advisor may have an incentive to trade more, pay higher commissions, choose brokers for research benefits rather than execution quality, or use client assets for benefits that mainly help the advisor. So client commissions should never be treated as free resources. Second, personal trading policies. These policies address the risk that employees may trade for themselves using client information, research conclusions, pending trades, or opportunities that should belong to clients. Common controls include pre-clearance, restricted lists, watch lists, blackout periods, holdings reports, transaction reports, client priority rules, review, enforcement, and record keeping. Third, client confidentiality. Confidential information may include client identity, holdings, transactions, tax information, family or business circumstances, investment policy, pending trades, liquidity needs, beneficiaries, and strategic plans. Confidentiality protects trust, prevents economic harm, and supports market integrity. It is also a cybersecurity and operational responsibility. Ethical client service requires strong information controls. Investment professionals also owe responsibilities to their employers. These responsibilities usually include honest work, compliance with firm policies, protection of proprietary information, accurate records, avoidance of undisclosed outside business activities, and respect for intellectual property and confidential firm information. But employer loyalty has limits. A professional may not use employer loyalty as a reason to violate client duties, mislead clients, ignore law or regulation, falsify records, misuse confidential information, or conceal misconduct. When employer pressure conflicts with client duties or professional standards, the professional should use appropriate escalation channels. That may include a supervisor, compliance, legal, risk management, an ethics hotline, or another designated process. Professional standards help convert broad ethical principles into daily conduct. They emphasize integrity, competence, diligence, independent judgment, fair dealing, confidentiality, conflict disclosure, compliance with law, accurate communication, and priority of client interests. In portfolio management, ethics begins with client onboarding and continues through security selection, asset allocation, trading, conflict control, monitoring, reporting, and error correction. A forecast isn't unethical simply because it turns out to be wrong. The ethical question is whether the forecast was presented honestly, supported by reasonable analysis, accompanied by appropriate caveats, and used in a way that fit the client. So here is the main lesson. Ethics in investment management isn't separate from finance. It is part of professional finance. It protects clients, improves decision-making, strengthens firms, and supports trust in capital markets. Thank you for joining me today. I hope this lecture helped you understand fiduciary responsibility, client duties, and conflicts of interest.